went to the Queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. Okay, I am alone this morning in the studio, which always changes how I have to do things. As you can see, the camera angle looks a little bit different because I've got a different camera. I've got a different microphone hookup. I'm doing it all on my own desktop. So today is actually going to be a pretty big show, and I don't know where Ron is. He didn't show up, so I apologize for being a couple minutes late. For Frazier, good morning. Finally, I know exactly. John Atakis, it's a good morning. I started early. What happened? Well, I had to get the show set up at 6:29. I was like, where's Ron? So anyways, it took me a minute. I had to put the camera up and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe he'll walk out here while we're in the middle of broadcasting. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. I know why you guys are here. You guys are here for the simultaneous sip. And okay, so we're going to do that in just a minute. But I got to make sure that I can get all my other stuff going here because I had a little bit of a challenge. Let's see. Mari Easel says, you'll be fine. I know. I just got to relax, take it easy. It does make it a lot trickier to do it by myself, especially if I don't prepare for it and I don't have all the screens set up right and all that fun stuff. Anyways. Okay, so I know why you guys are here. You guys are here for the simultaneous sip. And let me get a million things set up. I know why you're here. You're for the simultaneous sip. All you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice or a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip, and it starts right now.
And we're here to say that the era of Trump and Zeldin and Molinaro, just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town. Get out of town. Because you don't represent our values. You are not New Yorkers.
Some of you guys might actually remember that. That was Kathy Hochul a while back. I think she was campaigning, and she's telling, MAGA and Trump supporters, get out of town. We don't need you here. That's pretty hilarious when you really think about it. She's been hemorrhaging people to Florida and other jurisdictions around the country, and it has been a real challenge for them to come up with tax revenue, as Mandami is realizing. Douglas Wyatt says, Afroman 2028. Yes, absolutely. Carlito and Tiffany, howdy from YouTube. I'm glad you guys all made it. So the All In podcast, which occasionally we play clips from, the All In podcast, I got to find a spot to put. Like I said, I've got tabs, I've got windows open, and this becomes a real challenge for me. Let's see if I can kind of clean it up a little bit here. Okay, so on the All In podcast, they had some analysis about what was going on with the economic situation in Washington State. So Kathy Hochul, she talks about how, she's over there talking about how they don't need conservatives and they can move down to Florida. It doesn't matter. Well, that sounds all fine and dandy until you actually do the math. And there's this thing that happens, right? After 2020, people learned how to work remotely. And when people learned how to work remotely, especially high income people, a lot of them bailed out of cities. They weren't stuck in the cities anymore. So let's listen to this clip from the All In podcast. And he talks about this exact situation.
Washington's millionaire tax passed this week. Here's what the tax is. People making more than $1 million a year will pay an extra 9.9% in tax starting in 2029. The Budget Center estimates the tax will impact 30,000 households, bring in another $4 billion for the state's general fund. The funds are supposed to go towards public schools, higher education, and healthcare. In a huge coincidence, on the same day the new tax was passed, Howard Schultz, the billionaire Starbucks founder.
A huge coincidence, did you say?
Yeah, just unrelated stories.
An unrelated story, yeah.
Yes.
Unrelated news.
He will be leaving Seattle after a 44-year run because he found out about these incredible Cuban sandwiches
there was
in
an
Miami.
opportunity. There was an opportunity to buy a $44 million condo in Surfside. He couldn't pass it up. It just happened to be on the same day that they passed a millionaire tax.
He had the Cuban sandwich at Le Sandwich, and he fell in love. Schultz has been getting crushed.
What a joke.
After saying when he ran for president that he would be willing to pay more taxes. Bezos obviously left back in November of 2023. And people speculated maybe the 7% capital gains tax would have influenced that. Who knows? So I guess, Chamath, what is the end game here? Because for these local politicians, they must have learned the lesson that people of means can move. They have the ability to buy new homes, put their old homes on the market. They're very mobile. And they could even leave the United States and go to Singapore or Dubai or other locations in the world. Why are they still enacting these? And will they continue to still enact these until we get to 60, 70% tax rates and we just lose all of the creators and this becomes Ayn Randian?
I think that state politicians on the West Coast are very ineffective and not very smart. Nick, there's a tweet that was published. I think maybe it was an infographic that showed net migration rates of every single state for 2025. Washington is a few months behind California in trying to enact these stupid taxes. And the reason they're stupid is these kinds of things don't work at the state level. And we know what it's already done in California because the Hoover Institution just published something this morning. And it's a complete indictment of what the billionaire tax was trying to do. And by the way, this billionaire tax is only polling right now at 25% of the votes it needs. So maybe it'll find a way to get on the ballot. And then even then, it'll have an uphill climb to get voted in. But look at the destruction that it has done in California by just announcing it. The Hoover Institution basically ran this Monte Carlo simulation. They ran 100,000 runs. And in 71% of those runs, it comes out with a negative NPV. And if you expected value it out, it's about a $25 billion hole. They also found that they overcounted the number of billionaires in California. So that number was wrong. They undercounted the amount of revenue that they pay. So that was wrong. And they overcounted the estimate of how much money that they would make. So that was wrong.
So they're not good at math. They're not good at math.
So when you add it all up, they thought they were going to make 100. They're actually going to make 40. The people that left pay, $3 to $5 billion a year of taxes. It's going to create a $25 billion hole. You're going to have the middle class that's now going to have to foot this because this is net revenue that's not going to come into the budget. That's about $2,500 per middle class household. There's about 10 million in California. So that's what's happened just by making the threat. Right. Washington had a 23-hour debate and passed the law. So I suspect when you look back on this in 18 or 24 months, it'll be as bad or worse than California. These things don't make sense. The reason they don't make sense is that you are putting good money after bad. We all know that money that goes to the state governments are wasted. We just don't know how much. And so when you keep asking more, eventually the smart people say, enough's enough, I'm out of here.
We might find out how much. I think Bari Weiss is on the case. I don't know if you saw her do her CBS report this week.
Crazy.
But she's going hard for fraud. And until you get fraud out of the system, I don't think you have the moral high ground to raise taxes. I think that should be the message all Americans send to politicians.
That should be your campaign promise when you run.
That should be the campaign promise. Get rid of fraud. the thing about it is it seems super obvious. Like to a normal person, this is what he said, Ayn Randian. This is where the producers realize that the harder they work, the more their success is punished. So what do? They bail out. Why wouldn't they bail out, right? And so I understand what he's saying there. And there is starting to be a realization amongst the Democrats, specifically people like Kathy Hochul, that these policies are extremely damaging. So here she is, right? So when she's campaigning, she's telling MAGA Republicans, Trump supporters, move down to Miami. We don't need you here in New York. Well, there's been a huge sea change on that attitude. So let's see, I have like 9 different buttons I have to push all at the same time. Okay, so this is why you need a producer in the show. So this is Kathy this week talking about, we need to raise our tax base.
And being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure. But they're going there because of the tax rate. We have to be smart about this. But we can fund what we want to fund with what we already are taking in.
So people aren't going to Texas because they have a better governor, or as Jasmine Crockett called him, Hot Wheels, right? They're going because they have no income tax. Why do people go to Florida? Because they have no income tax, especially when you're an older person and you're living on a fixed budget, which, by the way, oddly enough, there's a strong correlation between age and wealth and net worth. Go figure, right? If you have a lifetime to accrue wealth, of course you're going to have more of it when you're older. And do you want to stay in a state that taxes you on your retirement distributions? Because think about it, 401ks and IRAs, if they're not Roth, when you take disbursements, you pay taxes. You got a deduction putting it in order to pay the tax rate in the future. Well, go ahead, go earn your money in New York, but you can't retire in New York. As Bill Ackman said, New York is becoming a worse and worse place, not just to live, but to die as well, right? So that's obviously why they're hemorrhaging out people. Now, they took advantage of the fact that people could not leave New York City. And this isn't just New York, okay? It's not just New York. It's Seattle as well. These are intricately linked towns. A lot of people don't realize this, but when not Saddam Hussein, when brought down the towers, what's his name? Osama bin Laden. When Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were planning the 9/11 terror attack, and yes, Osama bin Laden was behind the 9/11 terror attack, right? Lots of conspiracies about who helped him, but nonetheless, they definitely did plan that. And over time, right, what we found out over time was that they had 2 targets. They could either hit New York City, or the other one was to hit Seattle. New York was a symbolic hit, right? It was the financial center of the world, but there's nothing really there. There's just the financial center of the world. It was going to be a very symbolic hit against the West. They also planned or thought about attacking Seattle. Why Seattle? Because a lot of stuff comes in and out of Seattle. If New York is the brain of the United States, then Seattle is the heart. I-90 runs from Seattle, the Puget Sound, and all the ports, all the way to New York City. I-5 runs from Seattle all the way down to San Diego, California. And from that, you can access the entire interstate system, right, between all the north and souths. Seattle has, I think, now I read this at one point, and I don't know if these change or not, but it was the number 2 and number 3 busiest ports in the whole country, right? Because you've got Tacoma, Olympia, and Seattle all have port systems that accept these massive tanker ships. I see them all the time. Right out in the Puget Sound because I'm on the peninsula. So, everything has a view of the Puget Sound, and we see the tanker ships constantly. And so Seattle is suffering from the working remote right? The working remote problem. And we have a huge commercial real estate problem. We have vacant buildings. Glenn Beck addressed this.
Space is empty. Now in Seattle, nearly 1/3 of the office space is empty, 35% at the core. More than a quarter of all of the office space all across the city is vacant. Entire buildings are dark at noon. Elevators that carried thousands of engineers and lawyers and designers and now move janitors and security guards through hollow floors where the lights never come on. This is New Orleans without the hurricane. It's not war damage. This is policy that is doing this. And the response from the city leadership shows something that is far more than incompetence. It is intentional destruction. They just passed a new tax in Seattle. You make over $1 million, which, go ahead, try to live in Washington State, in Seattle in particular, for under what, $150,000 if you have a family. You're at poverty level. Okay, so $1 million. There you get an extra 10%. No, sorry, not 10%. That would be madness. 9.9% extra tax. Another 10%. Okay. They don't have any understanding of how an economy works. Seattle's incoming mayor, Katie Wilson, proposed what she calls a solution now to just the hollowing out of Seattle. Okay. Here's what I would do. Fix the problems. Get the poop off the streets, get the people pooping off the streets, get the drugs off the streets, clean the city up, and you won't have this problem. But that's not the solution. The solution is, well, the buildings are empty, so let's tax the empty buildings. A vacancy tax on commercial property. On commercial property that the owners can't fill. They can't fill because of all these other problems. And so the city, I mean, think of this. You're already losing money because nobody wants to rent your building. And the city is going to fine you for it. Like you want the empty building. You're getting fined because I want the empty building. I don't want the empty building. I'm trying to pay for the building. I'd love to have people come in, but I've got a huge mortgage on this thing. I have conditions from the bank. I can't just give it away. You're going to get taxed. Okay, so you got property taxes, insurance, all of this stuff. Vacancy is the last thing any owner wants. Empty space means bleeding money out every single month. But the political theory running in Seattle assumes something else entirely. It assumes the owners are choosing vacancy. Why? Just think of this for 10 seconds, like you're a thinking human being. Who would do that? What would be the motivation? Yeah. They're just refusing tenants out of greed. Waiting for some imaginary payday to show up. So the government steps in of Seattle. The government of Seattle steps in with a punishment. Pay the tax or lower the rent or be fined. That's the economic incentive. Lower the rent or pay the fine. I mean, it would be really almost funny if it wasn't happening in one of the greatest cities in the West Coast. The real problem in Seattle, it's not a mystery. I don't need the Scooby-Doo van to pull up. Why did all the businesses leave? I don't know, Shaggy. Why? They left for reasons that everyone in the country understands. Seattle is not known for technology. It's known now for open-air drug markets, sidewalk encampments, retail theft treated as a nuisance instead of a crime, a regulatory climate where starting, running, or expanding a business requires navigating a maze of taxes and mandates. You feel like a criminal if you're going to run a business. You feel, the city is against you and the state is against you. Major employer.
And that's just it, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have a beautiful city. It doesn't matter if we have a lot of rain, which creates the beautiful city. There's a price you pay to be this green. It doesn't matter, right? Once you have law and order drop and then you have hostile policies against businesses, they're going to go away. And it's a trickle. right? It's not like you have them all disappear overnight. It's a trickle. That's why Kathy Hochul could be so brazen in her campaign, being like, we don't care if you leave. If you don't want to support our policies and pay the taxes, and go to Florida. And then later, once the trickle and the trickle and the trickle and the trickle leave, and you have all these mobile workers that you're forcing not to go to work, and they learn how to adapt and work from Zoom and work from home and work remotely. And all of a sudden, why would I live in New York City? It's crowded, it's stinky, everything's expensive, there's no good law and order, and I don't have to be here. They're not going to be there, right? Now, not everybody who leaves Seattle leaves Washington. I'm the recipient of a lot of people leaving the city of Seattle and moving to the Olympic and the Kitsap Peninsulas. But we also have the number one state for people leaving Washington is Idaho. John Atakis here he says, Boise, number one in the U.S. for remote workers in a recent report. I believe it. Boise's got all the benefits of a big town with a lot of the benefits of a small town. It's kind of both. It's actually getting to be a lot bigger town than it was when I was there. And I remember people talking about how it was a much smaller town before. But, it's got a mall, it's got a movie theater, it's on the concert rotation. It kind of has everything. John Frazier says, Boise ranked number one by Tech National Study on factors like affordability, co-working, internet, state income tax, and public safety. I believe it. We lived in Utah. And when we lived in Utah, my dad got a job up in Boise. So he did the whole, 6 months living up in Boise while we were trying to sell the house. And I remember my dad was always joking. And, it's not like Utah was a high crime area back in the early 2000s. But he used to joke about how in Idaho, the big news channel is they built another big ball of yarn, or, some stupid story that it was like, there's nothing happening in Boise that's bad. And so, it begs the question, who's in charge of the Democrats? Who's in charge of the left that are pushing these policies constantly? And John Fetterman was on the All In podcast. Now, again, John Fetterman, we love him, right? Because he says what he says. He wears a sweater just like me. He's just a normal peasant. No real leadership experience, no real work experience to speak of. But at least he is an authentic person, and he's not someone that gets clearly led around. Now, he does oppose the Save America Act, so as far as I'm concerned, traitor. But here we go. He's on the All In podcast, and he's talking about who is in charge of the Democrat Party.
Who do you think leads the Democratic Party today?
Oh, we don't have one. I think the TDS. I think that's the leader right now. Right now our party is governed by the TDS, and now it's made it virtually impossible without being punished as a Democrat to agree something's good or I agree with the other side. And I would define that by epic fury. I am literally the only Democrat in America in Congress that I've come across that's saying I think it's a great thing to break and destroy the Iranian regime. I think it's entirely appropriate to hold them accountable. And what's strange to me that every single Democrat that's run for president and anyone that I know in Congress says we must never allow them to acquire a nuclear bomb. When that happens, why not celebrate that or acknowledge that? I have only witnessed just criticism and this kinds of attack. Like, yeah, you don't have to agree on every single thing, but when a good thing happens, just because it comes from the different party, that tells me that you're choosing the demand of the base or the party over country or what's really, I think, appropriate in that circumstances.
My jaw almost drops at this admission. It honestly drops at this admission. There's no one in charge of the Democrat Party. So let's take a look at this. Oh, Ponyboy, he says, good morning. Oh, man, I'm late as hell off this week. And boy, did I sleep in. Yeah, I think Ron slept in too. I'm actually worried that he might be actually sick because there's some kind of flu going around the county. So I'll have to check in on him when I'm done here. But and I had a kid that was sick last night too. So I get it. It's been running through my family. I never get sick, by the way, ever. When I was in prison, it is a nonstop stream of illness. Okay. Because you've got 5,000 people crammed into a compound. And so, and of course the guards are coming out in and every day. So they bring some illness in and it flies through the prison. So it's one cold, one flu, one diarrhea, it's just something circulating all the time. The only thing I ever got in prison, and I still have it, is some kind of weird ear infection thing going on. It's from the phones. But anyway, because, 5,000 people all use the same 10 phones every day. But anyways, I never got sick, ever. Not one time. DC Gulag, Philadelphia, Oklahoma, Missouri, I never got sick. And I 100% attribute it to the fact that I was in the septic industry. I had been exposed to every pathogen and every bad thing you could possibly think of for a decade directly, like sometimes literally standing in tanks of shiz. Okay. And so I believe I have a very robust immune system that can pretty much handle most of what gets thrown at it. So I would, like, at one point I was in a 4-man cell, right? And my 3 roommates are laid out, sick, flu, and I'm like, just fine. I never got sick. It was hilarious. Anyways, my family's been getting sick one after another since I've been home. I still don't get sick. So really good thing. Now, Democrats, there's nobody really in charge. Okay. And it doesn't matter where you're looking. It doesn't matter if you're in Seattle. It doesn't matter if you're in New York. It doesn't matter if you're in St. Louis, Missouri. It doesn't matter if you're in Michigan. Nobody's in charge. Right? Barack Obama used to lead the party and he had a huge coalition. Before that, it was the Clintons, the Clintonistas. These two factions actually oppose each other. The Clintonistas are purebred corruptocrats that their base of support was mostly the Blue Dog Democrats, which makes sense because, Clinton totally screwed them over with NAFTA, but you needed the Blue Dog Democrats, the union workers' support to get NAFTA passed. And that's how it always works, right? They always need the support of the people they're going to hurt in order to get that agenda passed. And so just like George Bush passing the No Child Left Behind Act, which has been one of the most detrimental things to the family and to, American morality, because that No Child Left Behind Act basically meant the communists running the Department of Education get to determine what the curriculum is across the country. So again, he needed the support of the evangelicals and the quote unquote silent majority in order to get it passed. So anyways, the Democrats with the Clintonistas, they were just pure corruptocrats. Just straight up, right? How much can you pay me? Buying access. That was their MO, period. Now, the Barack Obama wing of the party, these are ideologues. These are people that are legitimate collectivists. They're corrupt just like every politician, let's be frank, right or left, okay? But they had more of an ideological agenda. And they had to have that coalition built together, right? Barack Obama needed the corruptocrats and the Clintonistas in order to get elected, but he had a stronger base. That base has been fractured. Why has that base been fractured? Because a lot of what that base was pulling from national populism, the Bernie Sanders crowd. And that crowd, in large part, defected to Donald Trump. And what got left is your real communist ideologues. So it's a really small power base. So Barack Obama, like we saw it in the 2024 campaign, he couldn't move the needle for Kamala Harris. Even when he told the brothers that they need to support Kamala, he couldn't move the needle for her. His endorsements fall flat. I mean, he's got a really bad endorsement to election ratio as opposed to Donald Trump, who has like 97, 98% endorsement to election ratio. And so there's no one that is a standout in the Democrat Party. So the only thing they have going for them right now, their unifying thread, is Trump derangement syndrome, which is really too bad because Donald Trump is doing everything that they wished and feigned to have been trying to do. Maria Bartiromo had on Greer, and he's talking about how tariffs and just the economy in general is really having a huge boom. So let me add it onto the stage here.
I think when we look at the trade policy, what we've done is we have flipped the direction and the trend in the trade deficit. Our trade deficit with China, I mentioned earlier, has gone down by 30% over the past year. And some people will note that Chinese goods can sometimes come in through third countries. And while that's true, and we're focused on that issue, our trade deficit with the rest of the world since last April has gone down by 17%. So overall, it's going down. And when that happens, it means that we're making more here. Over the last quarter, we had huge imports of capital goods. So even to the extent we are importing, that profile is changing. It means we're bringing in capital goods, factory equipment, machinery, data center stuff, things that lead to production in the United States. Our manufacturing productivity went up by the most it has in years, and wages for manufacturing workers on the factory floor have gone up by 5% year over year. So all of this shows that the present trade policy is accomplishing exactly what it wants to do. We're exporting more, we're making more. Americans are producing more things, and they're getting paid more to do it.
Americans are producing more things and they're getting paid more to do it. And our trade deficit is coming down. Hello? These are quality policies. This is what NAFTA, the way they pitched it to us, was supposed to do. It was supposed to, create fair and free trade, although nobody else practiced free or fair trade. And so Trump's policies are doing what the Democrats have campaigned on doing, but had no ability to do it because, I don't know, they're retarded. Okay. It's the Ayn Rand effect, as what's his name on the All In podcast said, right? We were pushing people out of production because we were punishing success. Donald Trump is doing the opposite. He's rewarding success, and he's rewarding companies for making things here in the United States, which means they have to pay people here in the United States, which means that money recirculates in the economy. Henry Ford, probably the greatest American industrialist, said the objective of every industrialist should be to make things for the cheapest amount of goods and pay the highest in labor. Why? Because if you pay high labor, then your own employees become the purchasers of the things you're making. It's a self-serving cycle. But when you pay your employees less, they can't buy the things they produce. And if other countries don't have the money to buy it and they're selling an equivalent knockoff cheap good, it just breaks everything. And it trickles down, right? Just like bad policies trickle down and people leave the state. It's one thing when you're captive to New York because you have to go into that skyscraper and sit in your cubicle every day to have that job. It's one thing if you're in Seattle and all the tech businesses are there and you have to be there to work. But at this day and age, especially if you're tech or anything that's quote unquote office or cubicle related, you don't have to be there. You don't even have to be there for board meetings. One of the things, now I've never been like a Zoom guy until I got back from prison. I am blown away at how much you can accomplish remotely in developing real, true, lasting relationships with people over Zoom. It's incredible, right? If you haven't joined us over at 1776live.us, you got to check it out. We spend a lot of time in the afternoons talking about how to resolve and get remedy for a lot of these challenges that, frankly, our politicians have set up for us. We're liberty seekers and we're trying to find freedom. Now, Douglas Wyatt said Afroman 2028. Yes, indeed. Afroman 2028. Yesterday, Afroman, after 3 days of trial for defamation of the police department and the members thereof, the verdict was read out and the jury gave nothing to the plaintiffs. They sided on the behalf of the defendant 100%. And this is Afroman after the verdict celebrating. And we celebrate with him.
Yeah! We did it, America! Yeah, we did it! Freedom of speech! Right on! Right on! Yeah! God bless America! Yeah! Power to the people! Yeah!
I think my favorite part is the old ladies behind him. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not one of those ladies is under 60 years old. I love it so much. It's so funny. So Afroman won his case yesterday, 100%. Now, I watched a whole bunch of commentary from lawyers that were like, man, the fact that this even made it to trial was pretty incredible because a lot of the things that they were claiming was a derogatory, these things weren't actually untrue because in order for it to get to trial, the statements have to be untrue. Okay. And so one after another, as the plaintiff, right, brought forward witnesses and they testified, one of the common themes was some of these statements weren't necessarily untrue or necessarily even being claimed to be untrue. Okay. So I'm not going to play this particular clip, but one of the things that the guy put in the lawsuit was that Afroman in one of his rap songs said he had a receding hairline and he was balding. And the guy's totally bald. It's like, and how is that defamation if he's pointing out something that's real? Well, you know what I mean? It's like, that's observable by everybody. Well, it makes me feel bad. Okay, so this was the one officer, and I mentioned this yesterday. This is the one officer that Afroman made the song alluding to the fact that he had relations with his wife. Again, truth is a defense. If there's no truth to it, then you can say there's no truth to it. But you can't say that this is slander or defamation if you can't say that the thing itself is untrue.
So people have come up to you and asked you if you were a thief.
I've had phone calls and I've had
Excuse me. Let me go back on this one. This isn't the thief one. In fact, am I even going to play the one that I introduced? Because if I am, we'll just go ahead and play this first. So since I already introduced this one, I already introduced this next video I'm going to play for you. So I'll go back to that one. Just a second. That has a specific order. I just flipped these videos. Okay, so this is... I'll get it. I'll get it, guys. I promise. Oh, no. Are you kidding me? I closed the tab. Of course I did. Okay, well, we'll play this. Okay, so first I'll play this and then I'll go back and play the other one. So this is one of the officers that was accused of being a thief, and he said this was defamatory. Now, this happens to be the officer who collected the money from the suit jacket of Afroman and turned it into evidence, which we'll understand more deeply here in a second.
So people have come up to you and asked you if you were a thief.
I've had phone calls and I've had it happen.
When was the first time that happened to you personally during your career?
In my entire career?
Yes.
I never had anything until this came.
You never had anybody ask you about being a thief and when your wife was charged with theft?
No.
When your wife pled guilty to stealing from her employer?
Tell me why you would do that to the jury.
Your Honor, I would ask this. Your Honor, I'm asking a question that builds on his reputation. He says he has never been called a thief before, yet he keeps saying that everybody treats him differently. This goes to his reputation. He is used to this. Has happened before. To say that this is the only thing causing the problem has ever hurt his reputation, he's opening up the door so that I can ask the question about what's affecting his reputation.
I'm going to allow this so you can see how it does or does not affect him alone. Just don't get caught up that your spouse's character is your character, because it's not.
So restating the question, Mr. Eastep, your wife did steal from her employer, correct?
This is a cop, by the way.
And it was a felony sum of money, correct?
Yes.
Which is over $1,000.
Yes.
And you were part of the search of Mr. Foreman's residence, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever have any contact with the money?
I noticed some money in a coat pocket and I pointed it out to Detective Newland.
And is that the money that Mr. Newland testified earlier that was upstairs?
That should have been some of it, yes. I didn't do the collection of it.
You just pointed it out in the pocket?
Yes.
Another officer took it out of the pocket?
I assume.
Okay. Do you remember which officer you pointed it out to?
I told Detective Newland.
So he's the one who found the money in the coat pocket and pointed it out to the officer, who then collected it and turned it in. Now, when he turned the money in, it went to this guy who worked inside of the department to collect the evidence. So this is, again, more context to this, because what Afroman did for free speech and pointing out small town, small county corruption in our police departments, this is a public service like you wouldn't be. Yes, Afroman 2028, okay? So what he did was absolutely incredible. So the guy whose wife has pled guilty to felony theft found the money in the suit coat, didn't himself take it out, but pointed it out to another officer. So imagine him rummaging through the closet, like tapping all the coats, looking for narcotics, presumably, because there's nobody that's kidnapped in the closet, right? Whoop, nobody's there. So he's looking for drugs, narcotics, allegedly. So he goes through and he finds a wad of approximately $5,000. That's what Afroman was paid. That's what he put in his suit pocket. He didn't spend any money, came home, forgot about it, put the suit on the hanger, went off to do another show, came back. Oh, they took money out of the suit coat. How much was it? Well, I put $5,000 in there when I did the show and I got paid. Okay. So that's the allegation. So the guy whose wife has pled guilty to felony theft from her employer, who knows what the amount was? They didn't say. He's the one who found the money by himself. Again, when these raids happen, it's not the buddy system. The cops don't walk around with someone next to each other, right? They're walking around doing their own thing. And keep in mind, these are the same cops who flipped off the camera and cut the cords when they realized the cameras were running. What do you have to hide? So the cop touching the jacket, finding the money, finds it, then goes and tells another officer about the money, Okay. And then the other officer collects it and enters it into evidence and brings it to the station, where the evidence guy at the station counts it, puts it in the baggie, and then eventually when it gets returned, that's when they find out there's a deficit. Here's a problem. Not only did this officer, whose wife was felony theft from her employer, not only he's the one who identified the money, which it's not hard for me to make the leap to think that he grabbed a couple bills out of it and, took it for himself. But then there's another point where there's a potential where the money went missing too. So this is the evidence guy testifying and an attorney that's doing some commentary on it. This is valuable.
Are you aware that the cash was ultimately returned to Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
And can you tell us why that was?
The prosecutor at the time decided we're not going to pursue any criminal charges, and the property was released back to him.
Okay. Were you present when Mr. Foreman picked up the cash that had been seized?
No.
Do you know whether any press was invited to attend the return of this cash?
I learned that there was later.
Okay, but you weren't there.
Correct.
Can you tell us what happened when the money was returned to Mr. Foreman?
Your Honor, I would object to that. He's already testified he wasn't there.
Okay, let me rephrase it. That's fair. Was an allegation made that there was less cash than there should have been?
Yes.
And who made that allegation?
I believe Mr. Foreman.
How did you learn about this discrepancy?
The evidence technician that releases property had called me and told me that the account was short.
Tell us what you mean by that. The account was short.
Just that there was more money listed than what there was inside, and that was less money was returned than what was indicated.
And where?
Oh, so the account was short? Is that what am I picking up what they're laying down here? Anybody ever work as a cashier or in a restaurant where you had to do the count at the end of the night? He's telling us everything. The count was short. The amount of money that they had in evidence was a different amount of money than what they returned to him. Let's hear that again. Maybe it wasn't him that took it, but what had happened was somebody did. Take it back. The evidence technician that releases the property had said the count was short. Here we go.
Should have been?
Yes.
And who made that allegation?
I believe Mr. Foreman.
How did you learn about this discrepancy?
The evidence technician that releases property had called me and told me that the account was short.
Tell us what you mean by that. The account was short.
Just that there was more money listed than what there was inside, and that was less money was returned than what was indicated.
And where was this amount indicated?
On the bag.
On evidence bag?
Correct.
If I'm understanding you correctly, the amount of money that was indicated on the evidence bag was more than what was actually returned to Mr. Foreman.
Correct.
And were you able to account for that discrepancy?
I wasn't, no.
What happened?
Once the allegation was made, the sheriff contacted the Claremont County Sheriff's Office to conduct an independent investigation.
Do you know whether an independent investigation was conducted by the Claremont County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And do you know the results of that investigation?
They were to determine that I miscounted the money in my original count.
All right. Did they?
So wait. So the independent investigation blamed you for not counting properly. Didn't blame anybody in the chain of custody for taking the $400. It blamed you for counting wrong. Uh-huh.
It blamed him for counting wrong, right? So that was the result of the investigation. It's not where the money went. It's just, you must have miscounted when it came into evidence. So you've got a couple points of contact where there's some questionable people involved. Okay, the video that I teased earlier about the gentleman who Afroman said, he had relations with this officer's wife, gets asked about it on the stand. Now, again, truth is a defense. So if what Afroman says is true, then he can say, well, I didn't slander you, or he can make a free speech claim saying I can say whatever I want, right? And so the burden for public officials in order to claim defamation is pretty dang high. So you would think that this guy would have an easy answer. No, she hasn't cheated on me. But instead, he has this kind of very ambiguous answer about it. And he's more just like, well, I'm offended.
So you're claiming that is the defamation statement is that he said he had sex with your wife?
Yes.
Okay. And that's painted you in a false light?
It's caused tremendous pain in my life.
I'll get to that. We have to go through false light first. So does it paint you in a false light?
Yes, that my wife is cheating on me with Mr. Foreman.
But we all know that's not true, correct?
I don't know.
Wait, you don't know if your wife's cheating on you or not?
You want to go there?
No, I just want to ask that question because you said we don't know.
I've been with that woman since middle school.
I know.
I would hope she wouldn't. But you know what? Once somebody puts it out there for their fun and entertainment, it's out there. And it's a problem.
So it's something we cannot verify the truth of? Is
oh
it
my gosh.
thing that can be verified, true or false?
Ask your client.
I have a feeling behind the scenes, this officer had some problems with his wife after this came out. Just, hey, can I do a little snooping on my wife to see if the allegations are true? And he probably found out some things he didn't want to know. Okay. Again, what is this all about, right? It's like these guys raided his house on an anonymous tip that he had narcotics and kidnapping. And they broke into his house, they broke down his door, they cut his security cameras. Somebody stole his money. Okay, somehow there was money missing, and it was just he didn't count the money enough. I don't think so. So this is Afroman on the stand being asked about this stuff, and he goes on a little bit of a rant, accusing different members in the department of different things. He's under oath. This is where lying would really matter. Right? He's under oath about how he researched these people and found out things that we would have never known had this not happened. Again, this is one of our police departments in the United States.
$2 missing. How does the $400 even come up missing?
Damn, bro.
You posted videos about Brian Newland doing hard drugs and snitching on his friend, and you posted those based on rumors.
I did.
We can look at your deposition, but before you argue with me,
I did that.
But isn't that a fact that you made those allegations based on rumors you said you heard?
It's a fact. William Newland is a convicted pedophile. And
Yo, this guy's not holding back. What the? Is it true that you said he's doing hard drugs based off of rumors? He just fucking jumped out the bag. He's a pedophile.
Based on rumors you said you heard.
It's a fact. William Newland is a convicted pedophile, and Brian Newland is his brother. After I zeroed in on Brian, I asked about him.
His brother's pedophile.
He's a large statutory rapist that has sex with all kind of underage girls. He buys them beers and gets them drunk. And all that. That's probably the reason he had to leave the Adams County Sheriff Department, because he beats up his wife and he messes with underage girls, and he had to get out of town and go get a job in Northwood.
All right. You don't want to answer my question.
I do. Please ask another one.
Well, let me ask this one again so I can get an answer.
Man, these guys opened a can of worms when they kicked in his door because their noses were not clean at all. So Afroman 2028, this guy did more to expose small town corruption in a small police department in a little town than anybody has ever done. I heard a lot of funny commentary. Like, this is the first time that a police department has been after a guy for a year and a half, and the black man won. It didn't result in the black man going to jail. It was a huge win for freedom of speech. And listen, we all say things. This is a podcast. We're news commentary. If there's rumors in the news or there's allegations of things, we cover it. And sometimes we take positions like we think that's true. We think that's true. That's our opinion. It's up to the judicial system to adjudicate that. And in this case, the jury came back with the fact that A, he didn't commit defamation, and all these things he said, you're within your purview for freedom of speech to say it. And these officers couldn't fall back on truth. They couldn't say what you said was a lie and it damaged me. All they can say was you said things that can't be proven incorrect. There was missing money. This guy can't say that his wife isn't cheating on him. This other officer, his brother is a pedophile, and the officer himself has domestic violence issues. He's been known and seen running around town buying underage kids alcohol. This is the police department. It's crazy. And this kind of behavior, it extends to the weirdest areas. So the next thing I'm going to show you here is a clip out of the Georgia Supreme Court. And I don't know what this case is about. It doesn't really matter. But in this particular case, this is the Attorney General for this, it's either the Attorney General or the Solicitor General. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, okay? In front of their Supreme Court, and she's being asked about the fact that she put stuff in her filings that are untrue, inaccurate, false, and these citations and quotations don't even exist. It's obvious listening to this. This is the Georgia Attorney General's office using AI to write their briefs and not even checking it.
So before you sit down,
Yes,
there's
sir.
one more thing I need to ask you about, unfortunately. In reviewing the trial court's order denying the motion for new trial, there are at least 5 citations to cases that don't exist. And there's at least 5 more citations to cases that do not support the proposition for which they're cited, including 3 quotations that don't exist. My understanding is that you prepared the order for new trial, the denial order for the trial court. Were those citations in the version of the order that you submitted to the trial court?
No, Your Honor, I do not believe so. They were not. I did prepare an order. That order was revised.
So those non-existent cases were cited in your initial brief opposing the motion for new trial.
Your Honor, I'm not aware of that, but I would be glad to research that and provide the court with a supplement.
Okay, we'll get a briefing order out direct.
You just missed my entire thing. Ron walked in. Ron came in. I muted it so I could talk to him while the video was playing. Ron's back, so we're going to give him a minute to jump on here. So Ron, what you need to do, you know how to do it. Just click that link and then just set your camera, and then you should be able to join, and I'm basically in control of the board here. I hear that sound turn off. When you came back from the clip, you lost your sound. I know it's because I clicked my little mute button. Sounds back. Ron walked in. I muted it so I could talk to him and you guys didn't have to hear me over the video. So he is jumping on right now as soon as he can. It'll probably take him a second. Huh? So you should click that link, put it in your browser, and then just make your OBS your camera, and you should be able to just use what you have. Oh, I see you. You're in. Oh, okay. So now put your camera on you. And you probably have to add your mic or whatever you got to do. There's Ron. See the little OBS system there? Okay, so while Ron's playing around with that, I'll go ahead and start showing this next little piece here. Let me get this set the way I want it. Okay. I appreciate you guys being patient here. We just got to get it. Ponyboy says, Ron, with all apostrophes Yay. Okay, he'll join us as soon as he can. So let me throw this up here. So this right here was posted by America First Legal. And what this is this is just like we had declassified. You got it figured out yet? So you should be able to, you're in here. So now you just got to turn your camera on. Like put your ATEM on 2. You're on 1 right now. I can see it. I'm not using my ATEM at all. I can't use it. Isn't your OBS set up to use the ATEM?
It is, but I'm not using it. You know what button to click?
Maybe. Want to switch me chairs for a second? Yeah. All right. Ron's going to come over here. Ron, read through this America First Legal thing. All right. We're switching chairs for a second. I'm going to go try to get it going.
Oh, good morning, everyone. What am I reading over here? Which, oh man, you got so many screens. We never sit in each other's chairs. Which screen am I looking at, Taylor?
The America First Legal.
America First Legal.
It's a shared screen already.
Oh, there we go. Newly released CIA documents that Biden administration identified motherhood and homemaking as indicators of white, racially, and ethnically motivated violent extremism. Oh. Well, that's nice. Female members abroad have been emerging as prominent players in the transnational.
Okay, we got sound.
Oh, the sound's there.
Okay.
Man, where are your headphones?
We shouldn't have sound. We shouldn't have sound.
Oh.
Where does the sound come from? Yeah, put those on. Then you can hear yourself talking. Can they hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're hearing me through my mic.
Oh my gosh.
Is that better?
Oh, I apologize. I can't hear anything now. Man, I don't know how to navigate your screen. You got like a million tabs open.
Just scroll down over there on the one that's... You already clicked through it.
Okay. I don't know how to navigate your screens, dude. This is so bad. Oh, that. Jeez. How do you do this?
I know, man. It's hard without you. Okay, I got you on over here.
All right.
I can't see your computer. I'm like,
All right, we figured it out.
Sweet.
I had to start your virtual camera on OBS. That's what it was. Okay, we're back. Okay, now I can't hear myself. What happened to me?
I don't know.
That's weird. I can hear you. Can the audience hear me? Can I get a sound check on myself? Anybody?
Anyone?
Anyone? I'm live. I can hear you.
I can hear you just fine.
You can hear me okay?
Hear you. Yeah.
Okay. It might be because you're on for some reason. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tap my mic. Tell me if you can hear it. Okay. Well, I'll just assume that you guys can all hear me fine. So give me a sound check 5x5 for me. Okay. So what this is, Ron, is this came from America First Legal. A couple weeks ago, we had another CIA release that talked about was it Tommy Lauren or whoever it was, about being an extremist, about being a white extremist. And what is REMVE, and that stands for racially. See, what does it mean? It means racially, ethnically motivated, violent extremist. Okay, so that's what that means. Racially extreme, motivated, violent extremist. I think that's right. RME. Okay. And so what this is this is another one of these CIA handbooks that was released. It's the intelligent assessment. So you go through here, and it identified motherhood and homemaking as indicators of RME, white, racially, that's what it is, white, racially and ethnically motivated violent extremist. So that's what REMVE stands for. So you go down here and it says the intelligence assessment reveals the top to bottom bias at Biden's CIA, an intelligence agency with critical intelligence responsibilities was spending its resources targeting women promoting motherhood. Female members, this is a clip right out of it. Female mothers abroad have been emerging as prominent players in the transnational white, racially and ethically motivated violent extremists, REMVE movement, spanning traditional motherhood-focused roles aimed at advancing white REMVE goals and roles. The Trump administration recently retracted this 2021 intelligence assessment titled Women Advancing White, Racially and Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremist Radicalization and Recruitment. Women Advancing White, Racially and Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremist Radicalization and Recruitment. It says female members have been emerging as key players of the transnational white, racially and ethnically motivated violent extremists, REMVE movement, successfully participating in newer roles in propaganda and recruitment. It goes on to say white REMVE women have proven to be proficient at migrating fringe extremist narratives into mainstream discourse and drawing other women into the movement. And it goes on to say the now retracted CIA intelligence assessment defines these REMVE people as sympathetic actors, as those who may not openly advocate for violence. So they're not openly advocating for violence. They're advocating for motherhood. And these guys are interpreting that as violence and find narratives about perceived threats from multiculturalism and globalism. We have adopted the term white REMVEs to describe those individuals and groups who incite, facilitate, or conduct violence because they believe that their perception of an idealized white European ethnic identity is under attack from people who embody and support multiculturalism and globalization. Now, in the context of America, the problem is not right, that it's a white nation. The context is we want to have one single culture. And what does that culture celebrate? I don't know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For the purpose of this intelligence assessment, we focus on a subset of women who are supporters of or sympathetic to transnational white REMVs, such groups as National Action and Nordic Resistance Movement, as well as a broader global movement, which is more diffuse and decentralized. We define white REMV sympathetic actors as individuals or groups who may not openly advocate violence, but amplify the REMV narratives regarding their perceptions of racial and ethnic hierarchy as perceived threats from those they see as advocating multiculturalism and globalization. What are these narratives that the Biden CIA viewed as threats? Promoting traditional motherhood and homemaking as women's most important responsibilities. In here it says, we assess the female members have been emerging as key players of this, including the white REMVE view of traditional motherhood and successfully participating in newer roles in propaganda and recruitment. Some foreign white REMVE men have reacted negatively to women's heightened visibility in the radicalization and recruitment process, including by making abusive comments suggesting that tailored strategic messaging and counter-violent extremist campaigns that highlight the limitations and pitfalls that women face in the movement might be successful in dissuading women from joining. Okay, and then it goes on to say here, white REMV women have been proven to be proficient at migrating fringe extremist narratives into mainstream discourse and drawing other women into the movement. And what are those kind of things? I don't know. Motherhood and homemaking. Motherhood and homemaking may be added to the list of other everyday behaviors that made everyday Americans radicalized suspects under the Biden administration. Here it says, the white REMVEs allege that this rise is a conspiracy, which they have termed the Great Replacement Theory. This has been pushed by Tucker Carlson and many people, and the Democrats have said this. Right? It's not like this is a fringe theory. This is happening. We just talked about Tom Homan. The Democrats' motive here is to increase their voter base by bringing in immigrants and things like that. And they do not encourage assimilation. Why? Because if they assimilate, they might adopt, I don't know, American values. Okay. The group has lauded motherhood and homemaking as the women's most important responsibility. And that's a problem. And in 2017, it recorded an increased number of female recruits. And that's a problem. Judging the from NRM's public manifesto and the USG report, the CIA intelligence assessment is just the latest example of the Biden administration war on parents, in addition to its other efforts like branding concerned parents as domestic terrorists, right? Going after traditional Catholics, going after the school boards. That's what they were doing here. The AFL obtained new documents conclusively proving that Attorney Attorney General Merrick Garland's infamous October 4th memo labeling concerned parents at school board meetings domestic terrorists was politically motivated. And so here it says, this email was, this is what the perf clips and elsewhere, just checking to see what you are aware. This is from Tamara Matthews, counsel, the Attorney General's office. Thanks, Tamara. This is Kevin Chambers. We are aware challenging there's a finding federal hook, but the White House has been in touch about whether we can assist in some form or fashion. So they were helping with this. So then it goes on to continue. Biased intelligence products like this undermine America's confidence in the federal government and reveal yet another viewpoint that the Biden administration has treated as a domestic terror threat. So then here's an example in here, and I think this is a real guy, the anti-government authority abusive parent stepdad profile. So visually, we see a portrait of our protagonist, Pete, along with stock footage that you would associate with a suburban dad, a lawnmower, a lazy boy dad. Sound FX helped build Pete's environment. This is Pete, married guy with 2 small children. He's been in the neighborhood for 5 years, but hasn't gotten to know any of the neighbors. He works 9 to 5. He's often seen hanging out at the local bar afterwards. He seems like a quiet guy and mostly keeps to himself. And the problem is, okay, and then it says, scene 2, Chris is home. You are Pete's friend. So this is the CIA's manual on how to infiltrate this guy's life, okay? Pete's friend, Chris sitting in front of your computer looking at Pete's social media posts. You've been friends online for a couple of years, so you create this aura. And Pete has always seemed like a decent guy, but recently you've noticed changes in his behavior online that alarm you. You've even seen him post some racial sites with violent tendencies. Choice 2A1, contacts Pete's wife and asks if she's noticed any new activities. Choice 2A2, wait until you see Pete at softball next week and ask if he's really interested in these new groups. Choice 2A3, keep closer tabs on Pete's online activity. So they're basically, I don't know, trying to encourage snitches or their little online army to go after these people. After branding mothers, parents, and government critics as domestic terrorists, the Biden administration utilized the full force of the federal government. As subset A to that strategic goal, the Biden administration asked the FBI, CIA, and DHS at the department to study how disinformation relates to the domestic terrorism threats, connecting the whole of society censorship program to the national security. And so here's their little bullet points here. Action, whatever, enhance the U.S. government's understanding of how foreign state and non-state information operations, particularly disinformation, relate to the domestic terrorist threat. Measure of performance, provide an internal report to the U.S. government stakeholders on key findings regarding this threat. The Biden administration didn't stop there. It also coordinated with foreign governments to censor domestic extremists, right? So in here, foreign partners and foreign intelligence and information to U.S.-based violent extremism. It was the United States in many ways that was pushing Europe and others to have a much more larger censorship complex. And by default, by censoring stuff that you post online, like on YouTube, right? If Germany censored it or Britain censored it, YouTube would often pull it down or at least limit who could see it because of their censorship, which was being promoted by our government for them to do it because our government has laws saying you can't censor. So they were basically funneling this into the foreign governments. President Trump has rightly retracted the Biden-era CIA intelligence assessment. The U.S. agencies exist to protect Americans. So along with this one right here, there was another one that they put in here. Maybe if I click
this sounds like you guys do our dirty work, we'll do yours.
Yeah. So here they have, Courtney is described as a budding conspiracy theorist. You're Courtney's mother at the dining room table. You're Courtney's mother and you're spending the weekend with your daughter. You notice that she's increasingly angry at several specific public figures, accusing them of what appear to be to you as wild conspiracies, including hurting children. You notice her longtime boyfriend, who's always been accessible and supportive, seems frustrated, and the talk leaves the room each time the topic comes up. I mean, it's just the government was targeting what we would consider the lifeblood of America, the family. It's just insanity. It's just insanity. And the thing is this isn't new. Where did this start? Where did we start criticizing motherhood and traditional families, right? Who is the genesis of this?
It's got to be somewhere in like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah, it was when the communists came to America and they adopted the liberals, right, as their base of support, the collectivists. Richard Nixon was watching TV and a program came up on CBS that he'd never really watched, and it happened to be the Archie Bunker show? Archie show?
Yeah, Archie Bunker.
Now, a lot of times we look back at that and we think, what good, wholesome television. But Richard Nixon didn't see it that way. Richard Nixon didn't see it that way.
And if you read the transcript today, it might be a little bit.
Yeah. So Richard Nixon didn't see it that day. He saw one episode of this TV show with Archie Bunker, and in the show there were two very handsome looking men that were gay. This is way back then. This was Richard Nixon's comments on seeing that on national TV.
What was it called? I've never seen Archie. And that's real family entertainment, isn't it?
The point that I make is that content, I do not think that you glorify on public television homosexuality. You ever see what happened? You know what happened to the Greeks? Homosexuality destroyed it. Sure, Aristotle was a homo. We all know that. But with Socrates,
He never had the influence of television.
and the last 6 Roman emperors were fags. You see, homosexuality, immorality, generally, these are the enemies of strong societies. That's why the communists, the left-wingers, are pushing each other. They're trying to destroy us.
Immorality and homosexuality are enemies to strong and free societies, which
You
is
seem
why,
to understand that part.
Yes, it makes you wonder why they had to run that guy out of office. I mean, he was lawfare. Kennedy was assassination 1.0, and Nixon was lawfare 1.0, and Trump was assassination and lawfare 2.0. Okay,
I thought you were going to play the Bohemian Grove thing.
Oh yeah, that's the faggiest thing I've ever seen. A bunch of men running around in the woods, right? Richard Nixon, next to Donald Trump, was the second most popular president we've ever had. And it's because he stood up for traditional American values. And it was at a time when a lot of Americans were asleep at the switch. Archie Bunker was great TV. No, it was wildly progressive for its era. But it's just like anything. It moves the needle. Now, I'm a live and let live guy. It's 2026. It's not 1956. I have no intention of throwing homosexuals off of roofs. In fact, the Secretary of the Department of Treasury is one of these gay men. So take from it what you will. But nonetheless, I don't see those guys, the guys that are in the LGB movement, that are more and more coming over to the conservative side of things, often for fiscal reasons. I don't see them denigrating the family, right? And actually, I mean, I've opined on this in private, but I kind of see their movement as the end of it, right? Because they're not pushing the continuation of it. They're not trying to indoctrinate kids. I think a lot of them have become self-reflexive about how they became what they are, and it often stems from childhood abuse. Let's just be frank and honest about it, okay? And so for them, it's a way to have a fulfilling life, but it's the end of the line, okay? And a lot of them, when you talk to them, they don't support things like homosexuals adopting kids and stuff like that. To them, it's just, I want to live my life. I am who I am. This is where I'm at. And this is it. I don't want to continue the cycle of abuse and stuff like that. That's great. Good. Thank you. But once you start doing drag queen story hour, once you start mutilating kids, you've totally lost the plot. And the Democrats aren't giving up on this. This right here is Gavin Newsom's wife. Now, you might know Gavin Newsom's wife from her embezzlement of government funds for her nonprofits, or you might be familiar from her as a claimed Weinstein victim. She was, abused and raped by Harvey Weinstein, who's now sitting in prison. So you might know her from that. Somebody had commented, I knew her in LA when she was a struggling young actor, and it looks like she still is. Okay. So
I think this is the first time I've ever seen her.
Yeah. So this is Gavin Newsom's wife. And again, this just goes to show the government is not promoting what's good for society. They're promoting what's good for their power. They're trying to keep this coalition of these different factions of people all together. And they say words that you'd think would sound good, but the message is horrible. Listen to this.
There's so much to learn from same-sex couples who have learned to communicate and who also are like, well, look, someone's got to do the care work in a same-sex male couple. Someone's got to do that. So I'm just going to do it. And this is and not be afraid or ashamed, because it's part of being human. We're all on a spectrum, right? It's just how society kind of pushes us and pressures us into these limiting gender roles. But again, the folks on the far right, they're missing is just this. They're living in this silo, this evangelical conservative silo that ultimately it's just pulling us back as a country to a time and a place where we don't deserve to be, and we're not going to be, because honestly, young women and fathers of daughters are awake now and they're woke and they're not going to let us go back. And so I have so much hope because of that. And obviously California has a huge responsibility to lead.
Did the first lady of California just say that the evangelical movement is living in a dystopian world? Is that... It's the liberals and communists. They're trying to destroy us. And guess what? They're in the governor's mansion.
Maybe you just need to open your ears, Taylor, because there's a lot to learn.
There's a lot to learn from gay couples because one of them does the dishes and the other one takes out the trash, and they know how to communicate. Oh my gosh. You got the CIA targeting people who want to promote motherhood, looping them in with violent racial extremists, right? You've got the mayor or the governor of California's wife being like, hey, we have a lot to learn from the gay same-sex couples. And by the way, evangelicals and Christians, they're just off their rockers. It's like, oh my goodness. Here is Washington State. This is the leader of the Senate in Washington State. Okay, so this is a guy who controls what makes it onto the floor. And Washington State, unlike every other state, we don't use Robert's Rules of Order. We use what's called Reed's Rules of Order. And in Reed's Rules of Order, the minority has no power. Mm-hmm. In Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure, the minority can, hold up a bill. There's a couple tools they can use to kind of get their way, or at least resist things. In Reed's Rules of Order, you have nothing. Just sit back, let it happen, because you have no way to stop nothing. So this is the Chuck Schumer of Washington State.
You got to turn it on.
Oh, I got to turn it on. Well, that makes sense.
Sorry.
Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here letting the silence go. Okay, so this is our Washington State Chuck Schumer.
Women have, if they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make their own decisions.
Okay, let's start over because the first sentence is the important sentence. Okay, here we go. So this is our Senate Majority Leader.
Women have, if they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make their own decisions about what happens with their bodies. Okay? And parents do not have the right to change that or make a different decision or be notified in advance.
I know, right? Sometimes, what did you tell me one time? He says, sometimes you come to the show and you feel like you're watching an episode of The Onion. I'm like, yeah, truth is stranger than fiction, isn't it, Ron? Right?
Oh, man.
It makes you hurt. It makes you hurt.
I'm so embarrassed to be from the state sometimes.
I know, right? It's bad. Okay, so I grew up in the Mormon church, and I'm very proud of the way I was raised. I feel like it instilled me with a lot of great, great values.
Me too.
Yeah. And, you can say what you want. I'm not a dogmatist. Listen, if you don't have a Mormon baptism, I don't believe you're precluded from going to heaven. That's my opinion. Ron is still a very active believer in the faith, and power to you. Like, I have no problem with people living their Baptist faith, their Methodist faith, their Mormon faith, their Jewish faith. It doesn't make a difference to me. As long as
we're not that far apart, Taylor.
We're not. And that's the thing. We're not, because we all worship the same God, right? And we all have our right to pursue happiness and worship God by the dictates of our own conscience. And I hold to that dearly, and I'll defend that for other people, unless you're of the religion of Islam, in which case you can just do it over there. Okay. You do it over there, whatever. But this right here is what's called the Proclamation to the Family. And this was, when was this published, Ron? It was like
I think in the early 80s, like 80.
No, it was like 96, 95, 94. I was 12 when this came out.
You're right.
Yeah, this was in the 90s. Gordon B. Hinckley was the prophet of the church right there. And this is called The Family, a Proclamation to the World. And it's from the Mormon Church's first presidency and Council of the 12 Apostles.
It was written when Hunter was president, but issued when Hinckley was president.
Okay. So he says, we, the first presidency and council of the 12 apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, solemnly proclaim that marriage between a man and woman is ordained of God, and that the family is central ordained of God, and the family is central to the Creator's plan for his eternal destiny of his children. That's not a radical belief. Okay?
That's pretty super based if you're human.
Yeah. All beings, male and female, are created in the image of God. Each is a beloved spirit, son or daughter of heavenly parents. And as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. Gender is an essential characteristic of individual, premortal, mortal, and eternal identity. So then it goes on to explain some of the theology behind that. And at the end, what I want to point out here is they made a warning to the world when they did this, because there's a book called, I can't remember. It's written by a Mormon attorney that went to the UN to fight for family rights. And this was back in this time frame where the UN was getting on the front end of basically denigrating the family. And he was like, Sacred Duty, I think is what the book's called. And this came out around the time that he was doing that. And he was reporting back to the first presidency in the Quorum of the 12 that, hey, there's a huge movement in the world that's starting in this globalist arena that's going to push down into our country's denigration of the family by all kinds of different means, advancing, feminism 3.0, second wave feminist, fourth wave feminism, and all these other things. And so the first presidency put this out, and this is the part I want to highlight. We warn the individuals who violate covenants of chastity, right? This is this immorality in general, who abuse spouse or offspring or fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day stand accountable before God. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. We call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as a fundamental unit of society.
Amen.
You don't have to be super prophetic to fall in line with that, right? It's self-evident, as our founding fathers thought. Some of the stuff that we advance in society today, specifically with the, disintegration of the family, they would have been absolutely blown away that it was even a conversation. And Richard Nixon got to see this take hold, and that's why he said what he said.
Well, I think recall when this proclamation was issued. Do you remember what your thoughts were?
Well, I was like 12 or 13.
Oh, okay. Well, I was a few years older, but I remember that the common thought was, well, that's pretty wild. We're issuing a pretty common sense proclamation. I mean, what are we even saying here? Why are we even writing this down? I mean, yeah, mom and dad, families. Okay. And then, cue a few years later, and we have people like Matt Walsh asking, what is a woman?
And having a hit TV show or having a hit documentary about it, and nobody can answer the question. That's the crazy thing. Now, Nixon said it's the communists and the leftists pushing it. First, they had to get into our churches. Then they had to get into our schools. And once they got there, then they got into the voter base, right? Because once you indoctrinate people through the schools and through the religion, and you open them up to acceptance of this stuff. And again, I'm not a throw them off the top of the building kind of guy, right? But once you open the door to that, then they start getting into the electoral process. And who's driving it? It's being driven by foreign actors who are trying to destroy the United States of America as an enemy. If you can't beat us on the battlefield, beat us at the ballot box. Oh, well, you're not a citizen. You can't vote. Watch us, is what they said. So John Solomon, let's jump onto this election topic. There have been a couple revelations over the last days that to us are not very revelatory, okay? Because we've been on the front edge of this for a long time. But now when John Solomon reports it, it's making it into the mainstream. And that is that there has been all kinds of revelations about foreign interference in our elections. And it's by who? The same people who've been pushing the disintegration of our culture and our society.
So, John, let me try to unpack this. What I would first say is we ran a decade-long investigation in the Congress into China. And so this new bombshell that you just dropped is very...
China. What is China? Just big picture. It's a communist country. What did China do to consolidate power? The Cultural Revolution. And what did they do? They destroyed the family. One-child policies, taking kids away from their family units and educating them, indoctrinating them, turning them into snitches against their parent. It was breaking up the family unit. Mao spoke about this and wrote about it extensively.
Yeah, the kids are for the government. They're not for the families.
Yes, he wrote about this extensively. So when you see things like the CIA going after motherhood, they're not going after violent extremists that want to raise good kids. They're targeting the family as violent against what? A communist system. The family is the only place that collectivism works, in the family unit. right? Outside of the family unit, individualism thrives. And so they got to destroy the family unit, and then they want to take you and have that urge to protect your brothers and sisters and stuff like that, and redirect your loyalty to parents, to the state, redirect your loyalty to siblings, to your neighbors, right?
Well,
They want to
redirecting
expand
loyalty
that.
is really way easier when you're dealing with individuals. So that just makes sense as a government to attack individuals. Get everybody split individuals, and then.
Yes, exactly. So the idea that China is now so brazen that they're affecting our election system. Why? It's because when you can control the elections, you can control the policies. And what do those policies end up being? Targeting trad wives, targeting the family, targeting your God-given gender, and saying, we're all on a spectrum. You can be whatever you want to be. Okay.
Very concerning to me, and it should be to the Congress even today, that this information likely was around in 2019, probably in 2020. I don't know. We're going to have to unpack this and figure out why this didn't get to the Congress and why this didn't get out to the American public. Clearly, this is a scandal that's brewing, and I'm sure you're going to continue to track it. I should also say, you mentioned Director Ratcliffe. As you know, I chair the President's Intelligence Board. We've been working directly with the CIA to depoliticize all of these agencies. The President Trump gave us clear direction that he wants the politicization taken out of these intelligence products. And it's been, a slow slog. We've been working to get this information declassified. We've been working with the different agencies to make sure that there's transparency. And I do commend the CIA under Director Ratcliffe's leadership for retracting those 19 phony reports. And I actually think there's probably many more that are there, but I think this is just the start of Director Ratcliffe is trying to clean up the CIA. Obviously, we're here to help. We're here to help all of the agencies as chair of the President's Intelligence Board, and we'll continue to do that. This just the kind of the final point on China and their capabilities here. I think we should all be very concerned that China is continuing to leapfrog. And if you don't have if you want to call it the truth, transparency, real intelligence agencies getting the information to the policy makers and the decision makers, it's a major problem. So if you have a bunch of it doesn't matter how great you are at gathering intelligence. And I happen to think that our military and intelligence in the United States are very good still, but it doesn't do any good if that information never makes it to the people that actually have to make a decision.
So consider this for a second. The CIA, let's just assume it's been infiltrated by a long time by leftists and communists who have been pushing these different types of agenda, the psyop on us that the family is not a good thing. So even if you get a good director in there that doesn't support that and feel that way, all the people that would have gone against that grain don't work there. They've quit, they've left, they've moved on. You know what I mean? And so you're left with this body of people that have been withholding intelligence from the actual policymakers and decision makers. Why? Because they agree with what China's trying to accomplish. One world government, communism, et cetera, et cetera. It's plain as day. Otherwise, this would have been red flags all around. Every president would have had this on their desk. And still they treat China like a secondary enemy to Russia, who has gone full bore family, reestablished the Russian Orthodox Church, outlawed Pornhub in the country. They've gone full on traditional family. That's where our strength lies. Why? Because they lived through communism. They saw the family break apart. And guess what? When the Soviet Union fell, you know what the only thing people had left was? Their families. In the 90s, saw a huge increase in family loyalty because that's all you had. Fathers, their only duty was to make sure their kids were fed, because when the state bread lines ran out of bread, guess what? Kids started looking to their parents. And so they've reestablished that. And that is one of the reasons why Russia has not been able to integrate with the West. And Putin has talked about this extensively, telling the West, look, we can't be a part of you guys because you don't support even traditional human values.
You know what's kind of funny is you could probably name the names of the families that want us to break families apart.
You pretty
Rothschild,
yes. The ones that want to exercise power and dominion. Right. Yes. So let's continue on here with Devin Nunes.
And just to kind of go back to what I was saying, we ran this China investigation for a decade, and this is clearly information that should have come to us immediately back in Congress, back when I was in Congress. So now, the President's Intelligence Board, we're working with anyone and everyone that wants to have transparency and wants to have accountability. We're there to help aid in that process. So we need to really understand and unpack, what did they actually get? What did they take? What was in there? What was the data that was in there? And then who hid it, right? And I think this is going to be not only from kind of our perch and with our direction from the president to depoliticize, but I think the agencies themselves will need to do their own investigation and also get that information to Congress. I think there's still some great members of Congress out there. If you take Chairman Crawford, that has my old job on the House Intelligence Committee, or of course, Chairman Grassley, who has a long record of working with whistleblowers, that's where this really needs to get to that point. And then at some point, people have to be prosecuted or fired or demoted or forced into early retirement. Something has to start happening with all of this malfeasance that's going on, which is why, just going back to the prior question about John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, retracting these 19 reports. Now the question is, are there going to be changes made at the agency, which I know that Director Ratcliffe is continuing to work on. The first thing that comes to my mind, John, is if you think back to that time period, you had a almost correlated kind of parallel efforts at that time. And I don't know that they were working together or not, but it was really in that same time frame. So if you remember, this is that time that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Milley, I believe this was in 2020. Remember, he did that weird thing where he picked up the phone and called somebody over in China that said, don't listen to President Trump. And I'm just wondering if this is if these are related or not. But I think, we need to look at what this ombudsman had to say. The committees, everybody needs to kind of take get all the facts first, follow those facts, but then make sure people are held accountable. And I would just look at whether or not these are related, because the timing is quite similar, where you probably had multiple agencies coordinating together to not give the president information.
At its core, and this is something you can never, ever, ever discount, is the ideology, right? Communists have an ideology. You just heard the governor's wife from California. That's expressing an ideology. People act out what they truly believe. The American ideology is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What is the communist ideology, right? It's completely different. And so when you see stuff like that, where Mark Milley's like, just ignore the president, he's aligning himself with China. So does Mark Milley's ideology line up with China? It was Mark Milley who said, I want to understand I want to understand white guilt or white privilege or whatever, and he acknowledged it. And this is nonsense. And so
that is very interesting, though, bringing that back up, that little message that Mark Milley, did over there to China, said, don't listen to Trump. Isn't that a tell that Trump's not read in and he's not part of the plan that's dealing with China? I mean, come on, people.
It's not that he's not read in. Yeah, he opposes whatever China stands for, but Mark Milley doesn't. Right. So is it in America, because we're so bent on life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and pursuit of happiness oftentimes making a bunch of money, we just assume these guys are all bought off. Not necessarily. Sometimes these guys have a real ideological, theological belief system that runs contrary to the American way of life, which is why they align themselves in these weird ways. Like, Mark Milley, the CIA, they have to investigate themselves. The same guys who wrote the report saying trad women and, the family is a bad thing and promotes violent extremism. Those guys, they gotta tell on themselves. I don't think so. Right? No way. John Solomon was on with Eric Bolling, and he was talking about, again, these ballots and driver's license and stolen identities. And apparently we had a mole inside of China that told us exactly why China was stealing all the voter data and creating driver's licenses and sending them into the United States.
Now, here's what what we know that may be most
Okay. Yep. I gotta share the screen, put it up on the stage. You saw my screen. It's like 4,000 places.
I know.
Here's what we know that may be most concerning. So these penetrations into the voter databases, the accessing of the voter databases, registration databases in America was detected in early 2020. So February through about June. In July, the Customs Border Protection Agency, Customs Border Protection intercepted a package of tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses. The FBI had a mole inside the Chinese government who said those licenses were sent here to create fake ballots so that more ballots could be cast for Joe Biden in the battleground states and potentially help Joe Biden defeat Donald Trump in the 2020 election. So there is evidence that after the penetrations occurred, China went to active measures, meaning sending driver's licenses in with the hope that they would get ballots during the pandemic, absentee ballots, and be able to vote on behalf of identities that either weren't in the States anymore or were fake identities.
Now, the thing here is they create the fake ballots to vote for the candidates to promote their ideology. And because they've penetrated our schools and they've penetrated our churches, a lot of people, it creates this aura of plausible believability. It's plausible that we voted to mutilate our children. It's plausible we voted for a Senate leader in Washington State that says if you can have a kid, then you have the right to choose whatever you want with your life. You know what I mean? It
makes the ridiculous seem okay.
It makes the ridiculous seem okay because they've imported that ideology, and as long as there's enough people, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 6 that will stand up and be like, feminism, abortion for everybody, kids suck.
And then your response to that is, man, my neighbors are crazy.
Yeah, and the reality is it's like, no, they're not usually. There's just the one wacko that normally couldn't move the needle in an election. But because they're so active, they think that we are going to buy it.
So may I ask this just for clarity? So each state holds this data of their own citizens, right? Of their own voters, voter rolls. Did they hack all of them, some of them, many of them? What did they get?
We don't know. We don't know because the number of states were redacted and the identity of the states were redacted, and the actual method upon which they accessed each state is redacted. We're asking the CIA Director John Ratcliffe and the Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard to declassify and release the underlying data. But what we do know is it was multiple states data that was obtained.
And someone knows, so each state knows how they were hacked, right? But they don't.
I don't think the states even know that they've been penetrated. Wow. That is a very scary thing. We can find no evidence, and we've asked the question, but no one can answer whether any state's been notified. You have senators right now.
That begs the question, John. We were talking about Venezuela getting involved, maybe the voting machine hacking. Is it possible China was using Venezuela's technology? And not that the Chinese don't have it.
No evidence yet. Yeah, no evidence of that yet. It
false, lots of evidence.
Looks like, and think about this. If they had access to the voting machines where they could flip votes, right? Why would they have to go through the trouble of setting up fake voter identities to do it? It's
so that you could clear the audits after the fact when we promoted the ridiculous, like a dementia patient for president?
You know how this topic sounds ridiculous to a lot of people, and a lot of people, if you bring up, like you and I, if you bring up, Venezuelan voting, you're crazy. What's going? The funny thing is that now this is being discussed on the news. And if it has no truth, how did this make it into the news as part of a talking point that you're even talking about at all?
That's the thing. John Solomon is way behind the curve here. He is a straight journalist. He's going to report what he's got in front of him. That's fair enough.
Right, but he's still on the leading edge of what is hitting the zeitgeist.
For mainstream, yeah.
Yes.
So here's the working theory, right? Venezuela created these voting machines to steal their own country's election and thought, what a great idea. We can export this. Mm-hmm. So Venezuela has, through Serbia and their help with Cuba and Iran involved, all of them were involved in this, all supported by China. Their thing was they could flip 2 to 5% of the vote on the machines by itself. That's enough to, get Barack Obama in.
You and I understand this, and Ponybo and Carlitos understand this, but nobody else understands this.
Yes. And then what China did here was when they realized that you can't win with just 2 to 5%, they're like, well, we've got the resources to now backload those elections with mail-in ballots through fake identifications and all that kind of stuff. So they provided the groundwork to be able to go in and backload it so that they could win in red states. It's one thing when you're in a blue state and you're getting that 1 or 2% margin. It's another thing when you're in a red state and you're trying to get a freaking communist on a school board.
I know, but how are we, the people, supposed to fix this if we can't even talk about it in the normal,
You can't. Look at the Senate. The Senate is like, we don't think there's a problem here. It's like, you've got a 90% support issue. Why don't you go for it? And the thing is this whole thing with the Democrat Party has no principles, okay, beyond just destroy the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness mantra. Just destroy that, and then we can rule the ashes, okay? So look at Joe Biden. Look at his career. He's pro-family, doesn't like the gays, doesn't want his kid to grow up in a racial jungle, is opposed to multiculturalism, blah, blah, blah. And then by the time he's president, he's got freaking transgenders in the White House, transgender girl with no top on, boob job, right? He's talking about everybody's gay and it's great. Complete 180. Why? Because he thinks his base supports it. These guys pander to their votes, and when their votes aren't real, they can get drawn farther and farther and farther away. They do whatever
they have to for the accumulation of power. It has nothing to do with anything else.
So even if they're not read in on it, they think that that's where the agenda's going.
Suggests that they maybe don't have access yet to that sort of capability, but they were in a position at least to do what we call old-fashioned ballot box stuffing, something that the Democrats have done for a long time. By the way, there have been races in Connecticut and New Jersey just in the last couple of years overturned because of illegal ballot box stuffing. So it looks like China was going in that direction if the FBI documents are an accurate reflection of what the intelligence community knew.
I would love to know if Georgia was one of those. Do we know if Georgia was among them?
We don't know the states yet. We do not know. And now that's why I'm working so hard to get the CIA director, the DNI, and others to do this. President Trump should order them to do it. This is really important stuff. And like I said, in Great Britain, when this revelation occurred, it was a matter of national crisis. In America, our intelligence community made it a matter of cover-up. They put their politics before their country. And that is.
And when you hear the word politics, think ideology. It's because the people in the CIA and the FBI have for a long time been communists. James Comey was a registered Communist Party member, and then when he got involved in government, he switched to Republican. He was a communist. He said so. John Brennan was also a registered communist and voted for communist candidates. And then he got appointed by Democrats and worked his way up through the ranks. They're communists. My first voter registration was for Republican. Occasionally, I'd cross the line and vote for the other guy, but I've always been a Republican. That was my initial registration, okay? So when these guys have their initial registrations as communists and then they come into government, Comey was appointed by Republicans and Brennan appointed by Democrats, guess what? It's just a takeover. It's just the long march, as Mao said, through the institutions. We have to infiltrate schools, churches, all political factions, and then we can consolidate power. And the thing is this has real world effects. So Nick Shirley out in California, he was exposing all of the hospice care fraud and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He also took on the challenge of exposing some voter fraud and misregistrations. So he's here knocking on the door of a voter who is 125 years old and has voted 55 times. Now,
good on you.
Now, we have been talking about how there's duplicate voter registrations where we have actual duplicate voter registrations. So that's a problem, okay? Now, this is one of those situations where I would say, I think this is a duplicate voter registration.
All right, so let's say his name's Virginia. She's 125 years old. She's voted over 55 times. And she's all right, so let's say his name's Virginia. She's 125 years old. She's voted over 55 times, and she's active on the voter rolls here in California. Let's see if she's home. Hi, how's it going, sir? Doing good?
No, I'm cooking.
Oh, okay, well, I'll be quick. I'm just looking for Virginia, 125 years old.
125 years old?
Yeah, she's registered to vote at this location right here. Is Virginia here?
Yeah, but she ain't no 125 years old.
Really? How old is Virginia then?
80.
80? Well, here on the state of California, She's 125 years old, and she's voted in 55 elections.
Nope.
Is there another Virginia?
No, not here.
Virginia?
10-4. It's only one in the whole world.
Only one in the whole world. Well, I hope she's voting good, so she's not 125? No. Well, is Virginia doing good at least?
So. She's a year younger than me, and I'm 82.
Say, go tell Newsom she ain't 125. She 81.
Okay.
Awesome. You do that. Have a good one.
Do you see what the problem is? Every location we went to inside this video, there's something wrong with the voter rolls. Whether or not the person's 125 years old, it actually doesn't matter. The part that matters is that the information is wrong on the person who's supposed to be voting here inside the United States. And the other locations, people aren't supposed to be living inside of P.O. boxes, yet they are registering to vote out of P.O. boxes, making it impossible to track back who that person is to see who actually cast that vote. This leads to lots of fraud, and everyone should be concerned about the integrity of our elections when people cannot show their own ID when they show up to vote.
Duh. Seems pretty obvious. It seems like anybody that's 125 years old, you could just take them off the voter rolls, but they don't. Again, I suspect there's a lot of duplicate ballots going on. So here's Senator Adam Schiff from California. He won California by 2,723,648 votes in 2024. Who's Adam Schiff? The moron, right? The watermelon head, the pinhead, or the watermelon, whatever Trump calls him. Okay,
he's my favorite liar.
He's one of the worst. He's one of the worst congressmen we have. This guy is. It's actually shocking to me that Democrats even take him seriously because he's
just a liar.
He's just a liar. But here's the thing. California processed 4,308,269,000 new voter applications between 2022 and 2024. 4 million people. My understanding was California is having an exodus of people.
Yeah, it's like that's about the same number that left.
So where are the 4 million people that came in? Now you could presume, some kids turned 18 and maybe some people never registered and they got registered. But let's be realistic. After motor voter, if you have a driver's license or any kind of public benefit at all, they'll register
they do have
for
a
you.
Border with Mexico.
Okay, so here's the thing. During that time frame, no proof of citizenship was required to register. Okay, so we showed this list before. This is a more complete list. This has all 50 states. So these are duplicate registrations, total registration transactions received. Oh,
Nobody
I got to add it.
that.
I got to add it back up here. Okay,
there you go.
So this is total new registration in that time period. Every single one of these for these states can flip all the elections, all of them. Alabama, 1.3 million. Alaska, 1 million. Arizona, 2.3 million. California, 14 million, right? New valid, and this is the new valid registration. Excuse me, I'm reading the wrong one. Here's the new valid registrations. Okay, so you're going through here. In some cases, Alabama had a 40% increase in their total registered voters in a 2-year period.
Oh, boy.
No proof of ID to register. Okay.
Jeez.
American Samoa, 40%. Arizona, 25%. Arkansas, 42%. Some big ones. Idaho, 56%. Idaho, you're next.
That's a pretty amazing rock the vote campaign.
In 2 years, Idaho has added 181,000 new registrations that are presumed duplicate. Okay. And that's a 56% increase to your voter rolls. The universe of ballots now available to vote in Idaho just increased, which makes sense because when you look at some of the quote unquote Republicans in Idaho that win, they're super far left. They're crazy left. Same thing with Utah. Come down here to Utah and Utah's like, we don't have a problem. Oh, this isn't a complete list. Where's Utah?
Well, it's only half the states. Go to the next page.
The next page is Adam Schiff.
Oh.
Anyways, the point is here, this is the problem. Right? We've increased voter rolls in a massive way. And like I said, China is backloading the ballots so they can increase the cheat on the machines. And then they've got these ballots to back it up and hit these audits. And the amount of increase of the voter rolls is stunning. Stunning. 4 million people in California. And again, let's presume Adam Schiff, only got 35% of the vote. Well, you add in all those duplicates, which is about 2 million of the 4 million, and there you go. Adam wins in a runaway election. Like everybody supports him. Yet you go out on the street and talk to people and you're going to find like 1 in 5 people that think Adam Schiff is the bee's knees.
But this is this the same year where Biden won by 20 million votes?
Yeah. 20.
Well, where'd the 20 million extra votes come from?
And by the way, that was 2020. This is 2022 to 2024. Oh. The Republicans were onto them, and so they had to actually they couldn't have another Arizona happen. They couldn't have another Georgia happen. They had to make it look plausibly believable, right? Smear Trump, smear Trump, smear Trump. Everybody comes out of the woodwork to vote for Biden. And then we get what we saw for 4 years. And now the presumption was, let's assume that 20 million people they let in the country, let's assume there was no physical body behind the 20 million extra votes that Biden got over Barack Obama. They did it digitally. They did it with fake mail-in voting. But at some point, you're going to realize, like in these jurisdictions in Pennsylvania, where you had 110% voter turnout, that you're missing some bodies.
Yeah.
And so they open the border to bring the bodies in to backfill the ballots. China provides faulty driver's licenses. And so this time, when they cheat with the machines and they have the ballots, there's an assumption, well, there's enough people here. So now that Pennsylvania district that was 110% turnout, they throw 50,000 extra ballots or registrations at that county. And now it looks more like that normal 60% high turnout number.
Or at least it's possible.
Plausible believability. When you don't have checks in the system, when, if
it's not even possible, then it can't possibly be plausible. That's the problem. So you have to create the at least the apparatchik behind it to make it look like it's at least possible. So then therefore we can sell it as plausible someday.
And that's what it looks like they were trying to do in 2024. We can't have another cyber symposium exposing these ballots. Sure, the guy didn't determine it was dispositive fraud because he wasn't allowed to, right? But at the same time, they couldn't let that happen again. So
it's never been adjudicated.
Open the border, let the people in, make it look like there's enough people here to fill in this universe of ballots that we created, and then continue to add. So this is Patrick Byrne. He was on with Joel Altman. And they were talking about these Dominion machines and how they're all of these Dominion machines, they connect to Huawei servers. Now, Huawei isn't even allowed in the United States. You can't even get a Huawei phone if you wanted to. You'd have to buy it on the black market. Okay. They're not even allowed in the United States for personal or commercial use. So what the heck are Huawei servers and Huawei chips doing inside of our election machines? I got to click the button to share the screen, and then I got to go over to this other screen and click play.
We're not allowed to. But there's other emails that show they had total awareness of what they were doing. They're all been lying through their teeth from the days they first showed up. The CEO first went on CBS, 60 Minutes, and went to Michigan and went there. They've just been looking in the camera and flat lying. Yes, Senator, these things are air gap. There's no access. No one can get on. They're air gap. Remember that's what they were saying?
Well,
they're not connected. No internet connectivity.
And that leads me back to just putting it all together, just putting all the pieces together. You have roaming networks that built their data center for Dominion over in Serbia that's tied directly to Huawei, which is a financial institution in China, right? It's a Chinese
conglomerate. It's a conglomerate that includes electronics.
So the Chinese were not only at the top of the ladder when it comes to the election machines. They were also deeply, deeply involved in the actual creation of ballots and registrations and IDs. And then we have another scandal that John Solomon broke. Again, whoever's given him this information, good on them. Nothing new to us. Nothing new to us. But guess what, Ron? Guess what? They were actually strategizing in writing, in emailed writing in the Biden-Harris White House on how to funnel USAID money back into the Biden, which would become the Harris campaign.
Oh. I confirmed this morning, Steve. There's a foreign power that was discussing routing USAID money to Joe Biden's campaign in 2024. That was intercepted by our intelligence agencies. They should be driving that narrative with evidence. They don't know how to command the podium. They don't know. President Trump does. His storytellers don't. They react. They counterpunch. They let the other people throw the first punch like Tulsi today, and they don't tell the narrative.
We have all the evidence. We have all the evidence of foreign interference climbing the ladder from Venezuela to Cuba to Iran to Serbia, and nobody's freaking doing nothing about it. Here it is right here, right? Gateway Pundit broke this story today, or yesterday, I should
do want to say thank you to Mr. Mike Benz for exposing the USAID scams. Whoa, man.
Well, really, it was Elon Musk. They shut it down, and then Mike Benz got to exposing it. Right? Because a lot of information got released on what USAID was up to. There was no money going to international aid. It was all going to payoffs, foreign bribes. And as Burkhart said, you're going to find a paper trail of that money coming. What camera? Ron, you switched cameras to me. You got into your old habits. Put your camera back on 2.
Oh.
Ron went into autopilot. I started talking and he hit my button and he put me on double camera. He had the camera pointing at my camera there. Did you see that? I was like, why am I staring at my camera on my camera? Okay. So this right here is Chris. This was an FBI. This actually, again, Christopher Wray and Chris Krebs lied to the American public for 6 years. They knew Iranians as well as the Chinese, probably working in conjunction, breached U.S. election systems in 2020, stole at least 100,000 identities, then posted a video online of the stolen data being used to create UOC AVA ballots. And they did this, right? They did it all. So the Iranians are involved. So again, if you're going to mess with our elections, that's life or death. That's life or death for us. What's happening here? You still got
nothing.
Is that because I'm not primary?
Yeah, I was just.
All right, there we go. Fixed it. Okay. I didn't know I could just do what I just did there. Okay, so Trump posted this yesterday. This is called. Do you remember us talking about Hammer and Scorecard?
Yeah.
Okay, so Hammer and Scorecard, there was a minute there where we thought this was debunked, mainly because the government was telling us it was debunked, but Trump posted this. Maria Zack testified about the stolen 2020 election operation connected to Obama when he diverted $400 million from the infamous Palace of Cash in Iran, funneling through the Dubai industry operatives in Italy and Merrill Lynch, close your accounts there if you have them, in Geneva, Switzerland. In return, Italian officials at Leonardo SPA used military satellites to help hack U.S. voting machines, flipping votes from Trump to Biden using CIA-developed tools like Hammer and Scorecard, along with numerous other methods of fraud and manipulation. China reportedly coordinated the whole operation, providing the tech backbone and bribes to corrupt Americans. The CIA oversaw it. The FBI covered it up, all to install Biden as a puppet. This is the global election fraud cartel and the real threat against American democracy and to the rest of the world. Trump posted this. The thing about Trump is he doesn't share the classified information. The things he knows, he doesn't share. He's been criticized about, being flippant with classified information in the past. So he avoids that. So he posts stuff like that, right? Which is basically telling you what they've known for a long time. And it always comes back to this. It always comes back to this. And we'll kind of get, I had a huge show prep today. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to even all of it. Comes back to what Alexander Solzhenitsyn said. I'll share it. We know they are lying.
Sorry.
We know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know we know they are lying. We know they are lying, but they are still lying anyways.
Mm-hmm.
They're still lying anyways.
This quote is very interesting because it seems I was just talking to somebody about this, and what I came down to was they're going to keep lying to us as long as we let them keep lying to us. And that's just going to be the way it is. It's just going to keep going on.
Yeah. And there's no way to hold them accountable if we have 4 million extra ballots in California. Every single Republican in the state could show up to vote and you still might lose.
Yes.
Washington State, every single Republican could show up to vote. You still might lose. Mm-hmm. If they've got 25% idiots that just vote blue no matter who, plus another 25% duplicated ballots, they're at 50%.
Mm-hmm. And if every state has similar, who knows what's going on.
I watched it happen in Missouri. We watched it just happen in Boca Raton. The Republicans split their vote. right, with 2 candidates, these jungle primaries, stuff like that. And the Democrats end up squeaking in with 30% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you did just have the square off. You think China can't throw in an extra couple hundred votes to get it? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what happens here. Trump posted again yesterday about Tina Peters. Free Tina Peters, a 73-year-old woman with cancer, given a 9-year death sentence in Colorado prison by Democrat Governor Jared Polis and a corrupt political machine for exposing fraud by the Democrats during the 2020 presidential election. Again, free Tina Peters. It's tragic what's happening to her, and I sympathize greatly because I was part of that. Melissa Slotkin. Do you know who Melissa Slotkin is?
Not really, but I know the name.
She's one of the seditious 6.
Oh, yeah. I know who she is now. Yeah.
She's one of the seditious 6, and she told military members to defy lawful orders or defy unlawful orders.
Just like Mr. Kelly.
Technically, all orders given in the military are presumed lawful. You have to execute and then deal with it after the fact. Otherwise, you're charged with not following an order, even if it was unlawful. Okay.
Duh.
So she's all big, mad, upset about the election because she's with us saying that the elections can be stolen.
What?
Yeah, I know. Crazy. But the problem is she doesn't recognize that they've been stealing him for a long time. Now she's really worried that Republicans are going to steal it.
Oh.
2020 election.
Ma'am, we know that President Joe Biden was sworn into office. He was the president for the last 4 years. But I do believe my job as Department of Homeland Security Secretary will be to make sure that we assure that the elections are fair and people can trust them.
Does the federal government run the elections process, or do states?
It's very clear in the Constitution that the states control state elections, and then there is some federal oversight that's on it, but the federal government can set some standards. So if you're talking about the Save American Act, requiring you, which is within the Constitution, by the way, requiring individuals to be citizens of the United States.
Who won the 2020 election?
Oh, I got the wrong clip. She goes on to say, I just want someone to say the election will be free and fair. It's like, well, you're never going to get anyone on the Republican side to say that until you pass the Save America Act, right? And she's like, there's just no assurances that the Republicans aren't going to try to steal the 2026 election. She is saying out loud what the big concern is. This is Mark Warner in Tulsi Gabbard's hearing yesterday, and he had Kash Patel and Ratcliffe all there. And what did Tulsi Gabbard get herself involved with a couple months ago? The ballots down in Georgia. She showed up at that when they were collecting the ballots. So he's grilling her about this. And this is what John Solomon was saying. Tulsi Gabbard and these other guys, they're not getting out in front of these stories. They're not setting the narrative. They're reacting to the narrative. Mark Warner has emails to Christopher Steele, the guy who originated the fake PP-Gate narrative, the whole, Russiagate stuff, the Steele dossier. That's him. He's emailing him, sending him messages, not emails, text messages saying, let's meet in person. We don't want to leave a paper trail. He knew that it was all falsified information. He was on the Intelligence Committee, and he had this to say to Tulsi Gabbard, asking her, why were you collecting those ballots?
The country knows that you were recently involved in an FBI operation to seize ballots in Fulton County, Georgia. Yet this was despite the fact that the warrant showed no foreign interference or nexus. Matter of fact, the warrant was based entirely on conspiracy theories that have already been examined and rejected repeatedly. Now, where is the authority for you to involve yourself in a domestic law enforcement activity?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I appreciate the question. As you know, I've addressed every issue you've raised in detail in a letter, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it in this forum. As you stated, Congress provided by statute, ODNI, with the responsibility of election security and counterintelligence in 2021. As you also know, ODNI has purview and oversight.
I know the history very well, but could you just
I am addressing the question. ODNI also has purview and overview over two domestic related agencies, the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, both of which have purview over election security responsibilities to ensure the integrity of our elections. I want to correct one of your statements that you've made multiple times, which is false. I did not participate in a law enforcement activity, nor would I, because that does not exist within my authorities.
You were present on the scene. Are the photos of you on the scene false?
I was at Fulton County, sir, at the request of the president, and to work with the FBI to observe this action that had long been awaited. I was not aware of what was in the warrant or was not in the warrant.
And what was the president's specific request for you to go to? What was the specific request that was made by the president for you to show up in Fulton County?
To go and observe the FBI's activities on this.
Now, let's think about this for just a second. Why would the president want Tulsi Gabbard, someone who's very close to him, OD&I, in charge of all the intelligence agencies, to go observe this? Because the FBI is crooked.
Duh.
That's why. Because the FBI spent 5 years covering this up, and when we finally get a warrant for it, she's got to go observe it because nobody can be trusted. Nobody can be trusted. That's why. That's why she had to go observe it. She's in charge of the CIA. They can't be trusted either. Okay? They cannot be trusted.
Issue.
So
when you look at the fort, your question, sir.
Do you have the answer why the president was knowing about this affidavit before it was even served?
I'm not aware that the president knew about an affidavit before it was served.
Then why was he sending you to Fulton County?
Because the FBI is crooked.
This occurred the day that the FBI had it approved, their warrant approved by a local judge, and they began to execute this. To address your question, sir, about the foreign nexus question. In order for us to better understand the vulnerabilities in our election systems that may exist today as we look to 2026, and yes, we are very focused on trying to make sure that this election is one that the American people have
Director
faith.
Gabbard, I've got a number of questions. Director Gabbard, I have a number of questions.
I don't want to hear the rest of that.
Sure you do. You're trying so hard to get bent.
John Solomon's dead on, man. These guys don't have any clue. They don't have any clue. They're fishing. They want to know what's up. They want to know.
That's what it is. They were fishing. I mean, he had no interest in the answers. I mean,
no,
really.
No, he just wants to be able to make allegations of Trump's now interfering in the elections. No. It's like, All right, guys, we've reached over 2 hours. We are going to jump over to a private, and we're going to talk about this Joe Kent debacle. There were some other things that happened yesterday that we're just going to skip over. Mark Wayne Mullen started his confirmation hearing. You saw one little clip with him responding about the elections. Rand Paul started this thing out. You hate me and justified when I was attacked and kind of a thing. And Mark Wayne Mullen's like, you're a snake. You work harder against the Republicans than against the Democrats. So
I actually watched that one yesterday.
Yeah. And so there's that. And then
who was the other person that was grilling him too? It was also he was answering questions from somebody else before Rand Paul. It
wasn't before. Rand Paul was the open.
No. Well, maybe it was just the order I saw the clip in.
Yeah, Rand Paul came at him hard. Rand Paul's not going to vote for him, but Fetterman said he would. So he's going to end up getting confirmed. Again, Mark Wayne Mullen, this is really significant. DHS is over CISA. CISA is the one that oversaw the Dominion machines and that whole apparatus. They're the ones who said it was the most secure election ever. And in 2024, Elon and his team with Gary and I don't think Elon briefed him. I think Gary briefed him. Mark Wayne Mullen is the one who got into the military intelligence people that then fried the servers in Serbia, which probably stopped the electronic hack, which would have made any ballot fraud stand out like a sore thumb, right? So that's a pretty big deal there. So the fact that he's going into DHS knowing that, he's a huge threat. Democrats they can never say why they oppose him, but that's probably one of the reasons why. Secretary Peasants was on with Maria Bartiromo talking about the oil situation. And he basically said, look, the Iranian leaders, they're fleeing the country. They've been fleeing the country for a while. They see their bank accounts. They see where the money's moving. They're freezing those accounts, working with our allies where those banks are being held. And they're starting to see defections, okay? Because, some of these mullahs maybe don't drink the Kool-Aid all the way.
Not true believers.
He also talked about oil, how Japan's starting to help out with some of the oil flow and stuff like that. And Trump, there was a bombing yesterday where Israel out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars, gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. The United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Unfortunately, Iran did not know this, or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to South Pars attack, and unjustifiably, unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. So the Israelis, acting without the U.S.'s knowledge, hit an LNG line, so the Iranians hit a Qatari LNG line. No more attacks will be made by Israel, all caps, and pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field, unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case, Qatar, in which instance the United States, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirely the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. I do not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran. But if Qatar's LNG is attacked, I will not hesitate to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he's preventing the Iranians from having any chance of, oh, we got another link to another thing.
Yeah, skip it. It's garbage.
Okay.
I don't know who Miyagi is, but
thanks for the chat.
Yeah.
So he's trying to separate himself from Israel a little bit, and this is a direct result of the Joe Kent nonsense, right? Which we're going to cover in private today a little bit more extensively.
Okay.
We'll jump over there in a second. Another thing that happened was Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, Harmeet Dillon all went to Capitol Hill to brief and answer questions to Congress about the Epstein stuff. This was in response to Coomer's letter, basically saying, if you don't come talk to us, I'll issue a subpoena. So they just came and voluntarily talked. And what happened in there was no cameras. It was just an ad hoc meeting. So the Democrats literally, they answered all the Republicans' questions. The Democrats, one of them said, there's no C-SPAN cameras in here, literally got up and walked out, which just goes to show this is all performative. It's all performative on the Epstein stuff. They don't actually want to get to the truth. They just want to look good for the camera and create a narrative. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'll show you the key of all of this. It's misinformation, Ron. Don't you know all these people that are right-wing, like, Nicki Minaj, our new pop hero? Nicki Minaj and Afroman for the win, right? So Nicki Minaj and Afroman apparently both suffer from disinformation. And this is, of course, according to Kamala Harris.
How do you feel about Nicki Minaj's falling victim of misinformation?
Yeah, I think that... Again, one of the things about mis and disinformation is we have to, when we disagree with someone, take that into account in understanding that we may just not be working with the same information. And so let's do what we can to make sure that we are sharing accurate information with as many people as possible, to do what we can to make sure that we are challenging people.
Yeah.
About what they think the facts are, and making sure we're on the same page about the fact that 2 + 2 will always equal 4. And I think that's how we need to handle
This little interview she's doing would make a lot more sense if that little kid was Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, no kidding. We have to get on the same page with the facts. Yeah, aka narrative. All right, guys, we're going to jump over to private, and we're going to focus a little bit on Joe Kent, local Washingtonian, and the newspaper that once said that he was a horrible villain and white supremacist and blah blah blah. Biggest threat going into ODNI is him. Yeah, he was on the front page. Joe Kent on Tucker Carlson. Officials weren't allowed to raise Iran concerns. Ari Hoffman posted this, and his comment was, when the anti-white Seattle Times is holding you up as a hero on the front page, you picked the wrong side. So we are going to jump over to private, and we are going to be talking about Joe Kent. And I guess I have to do that, don't I? Yeah. All right.